This is a short story called Room Number 11 by Guy De Maupassant. What? You do not know why President Amandon was removed? No, not at all. As far as he is concerned, it would never have been known. But it is a story of the strangest sort. Relate it to me. You remember Madame Amandon, that pretty brunette, thin, and so distinguished and pretty that she was called Madame Marguerite, and all Perthis le Long? Yes, perfectly. Very well then. You recall also how much she was respected and considered and better loved than anyone in the town? She knew how to receive, how to organize a festival or a charity fair, how to find money for the poor, and how to please the young people in 1,000 ways. She was very elegant and very coquettish, nevertheless, but in a platonic fashion, and with the charming elegance of the provinces, for she was a provincial, this pretty little woman, an exquisite provincial. The poets and writers who are all Parisians sing to us of the Parisian woman and of her charm, because they know only her. But I declare here that the provincial is worth 100 times more, when she is of superior quality. The provincial has an attraction all her own. She is more discreet than the Parisian, more humble, promising nothing, and giving much, while the Parisian, for the most part, promises much and gives nothing but dishabille. The Parisian is a triumph in the elegant effrontery of falseness, the provincial an example of the modesty of truth. Yet the provincial, with her air of homely alertness, her deceitful schoolgirl candor, her smile which means nothing, and her good little passions, direct and tenacious, is capable of 1,000 times more deceit, artifice, and feminine invention than all the Parisians together for gratifying her own tastes or vices, and that without awakening suspicion or scandal or gossip in the little town which watches her with all its eyes from all its windows. Madame Amandon was a type of this rare race, but charming. Never had anyone suspected her. Never had anyone thought that her life was not as limpid as her look, a sly look, transparent and warm, but seemingly so honest you should have seen it. Then she had an admirable tact, a marvelous ingenuity and power of invention, and unbelievable simplicity. She picked all her lovers from the army, and kept them 3 years, the time of their sojourn in the garrison. In short, she not only had love, she had sense. When some new regiment arrived at Perthis-la-Longue, she carefully observed all the officers between 30 and 40 years of age, for before 30 one is not discreet, and after 40 one is often feeble. Oh, she knew the list of officers as well as the colonel. She knew all the habits, manners, instruction, education, physical qualities, the power of resistance to fatigue, the character, whether patient or violent, the fortune and the tendency to closeness or prodigality of each of them. Then she made her choice. She gave the preference to men of calm allurement, like herself, but they must be handsome. She also wished them to have had no previous entanglements, any passion having the power to leave traces, or that had made any trouble, because the man whose loves are mentioned is never a very discreet man. After having decided upon the one she would love for the 3 years of his regulation sojourn, it only remained to throw down the gauntlet. While some women would find themselves embarrassed, would have taken ordinary means, following the way of others, having court paid them in marked off stages of conquest and resistance, allowing her fingers to be kissed one day, her wrist the next, her cheek the following, then the lips, then the rest, she had a method more prompt, more discreet, and more sure. She gave a ball. The chosen officer was invited to dance with the mistress of the house. Then in waltzing, led on by the rapid movement, bewildered by the intoxication of the dance, she would throw herself against him, as if giving herself, and hold his hand with a nervous continued pressure. If he did not comprehend, he was only a fool, and she passed on to the next, classed as number 2 on the list of her desires. If he comprehended the thing was done without fuss, without compromise and gallantries, without numerous visits, what could be more simple or more practical? How women might make use of a process similar to this to make us understand their pleasure. How much it would suppress difficulties, hesitations, and trouble for misunderstanding. How often we pass by, without knowing it, a possible happiness, without suspecting it, because we are unable to penetrate the mystery of thought, the secret abandon of the will, the mute appeal of the flesh, the unknown soul of a woman whose mouth preserves silence, whose eye is impenetrable and clear. When the chosen one comprehended, he asked for a rendezvous, but she always made him wait a month or 6 weeks in order to watch and be sure that he had no dangerous faults. During this time he was racking his brain to think of some place where they could meet without peril and imagining combinations difficult and unsafe. Then at some official feast she would say to him in a low voice, "Come Tuesday evening at 9 o'clock to the Golden Horse Hotel near the ramparts on the Vouzray River, and ask for Mademoiselle Clarice. I shall be waiting for you, and be sure to be in civil dress." For 8 years she had in fact rented this furnished room by the year in this obscure inn. It was an idea of her first lover which she found practical, and after the man departed she kept the nest. Oh, it was a mediocre test. 4 walls covered with grey paper, adorned with blue flowers, a pine bedstead under muslin curtains, an armchair bought at her order by the innkeeper's wife, 2 chairs and some necessary articles for the toilet. What more was needed? Upon the walls were 3 large photographs, 3 colonels on horseback, the colonels of her lovers. Why not? It would not do to preserve the true likeness, the exact likeness, but she could perhaps keep some souvenirs by proxy. And she had never been recognized by anyone in all these visits to the Golden Horse, you ask? Never, by anyone. The means she employed were admirable and simple. She had thought out and organized some charity reunions and religious meetings, some of which she attended, others she did not. Her husband, knowing her good works, which cost him dear, lived without suspicions. Then, when a rendezvous had been agreed upon, she would say at dinner before the servants, "I am going this evening to the Association for making flannel badges for old paralytics." And she went out about 8 o'clock, went straight to the Association, came out again very soon, passed through divers streets, and finding herself alone in some little street, in some sombre corner without a light, she would take off her hat, replace it by a maid's cap which she carried under her mantle, fold a kerchief after the same fashion, and tie it over her shoulders, carrying her hat and the garment she had worn in a napkin. She would go trotting along, full of courage, the hips uncovered, like a good little maid that had been sent upon some errand, and sometimes she would even run, as if she were in a great hurry. Who could have recognized in this trim servant the lively wife of President Amandon? She would arrive at the Golden Horse, go up to her room, of which she had the key, and the big proprietor, Master Trouveau, seeing her pass his desk, would murmur, "There is Mademoiselle Clarice coming to meet some lover." He had indeed guessed something, the rogue, but did not try to learn more, and he would certainly have been much surprised to find that his client was Madame Amandon, or Madame Marguerite, as she was called in Perth de Long. And this is how the horrible discovery took place. Never had Mademoiselle Clarice come to her meeting place 2 evenings in succession. Never, being too nice and too prudent for that. And Master Trouveau knew this well, since not once in 8 years had he seen her come the next day, after a visit. Often, therefore, in days of need, he had disposed of her room for a night. Now, sometime last summer, Monsieur Amandon, the trustful president, absented himself from home for a week. It was in July. Madame was ardently in love, and as there was no fear of being surprised, she asked her lover, the handsome Commander Varengel, one Tuesday evening on leaving him, if he wished her to return the next day. He replied, "With all my heart," and it was agreed that they should return at the usual hour on Wednesday. She said to him in a low tone, If you arrive first, my dear, you can wait for me in bed." Then they embraced and separated. The next day, as Master Truffaut sat reading the Perseus tablet, the Republican organ of the town, he cried out to his wife, who was plucking a fowl in the courtyard, "Here! The cholera has broken out in the country. There was a man died yesterday of it in Vavigny." But he thought no more about it, his inn being full of people, and business very good. Toward noon a traveller presented himself on foot, a kind of tourist, who ordered a good breakfast after having drunk 2 absinthes, and as he was very warm he absorbed a bottle of wine, and 2 bottles of water at least. Then he took his coffee in his little glass, or rather 3 little glasses, and feeling a little heavy, he asked for a room where he might sleep for an hour or 2. There was no longer a vacant room, and the proprietor, after consulting his wife, gave him Mademoiselle Clarisse's. The man went in there, and toward 5 o'clock, as he had not been seen to come out, the landlord went to wake him. What was his astonishment to find him dead! The innkeeper descended to find his wife. "Say," he whispered to her, "the tourist I put in number 11, I believe, is dead." She raised her arms, crying, "It's not possible, Lord God, it is the cholera." Master Truffaut shook his head. "I should sooner believe that it was a cerebral congestion, seeing that he is as black as the dregs of wine." But the mistress was frightened, and kept repeating, "It is not necessary to say, it is not necessary to say that we think it is cholera. Go and make the report and say nothing. They will take him away in the night, and no one will know about it. What is neither seen nor heard perplexes nobody." The man murmured, "Mademoiselle Clarisse was here yesterday. The room will be free this evening." And he found the doctor, who made out the certificate, from congestion after a copious repast. Then he made an agreement with the commissioner of police to remove the dead body toward midnight, that there might be no suspicion about the hotel. It was scarcely 9 o'clock when Madame Amandine went secretly up the staircase of the Golden Horse without being seen by anyone. She reached her room, opened the door, and entered. A candle was burning upon the chimney-piece. She turned toward the bed. The commander, she thought, was already there, and had closed the curtains. She said to him, "1 minute, dearie, and I will be there." And she disrobed with a feverish haste, throwing her boots upon the floor, and her corset upon the armchair. Then, her black dress and skirts having fallen in a circle around her, she stood in her red silk chemise, like a flower that is ready to blossom. As the commander said not a word, she asked, "Are you asleep, my big fellow?" He did not answer, and she began to laugh, murmuring, "Wait, he is asleep. It is too funny." She kept on her black silk stockings, and, running to the bed, glided in quickly, seizing him full in the arms and kissing him on the lips, in order to wake him suddenly. It was the cold, dead body of the traveller. For 1 second she remained immovable, too frightened to comprehend anything, but the cold of this inert flesh penetrated her own, giving her an atrocious fright before her mind had time to reflect. She made a bound out of the bed, trembling from head to foot. Then running to the chimney-piece, she seized the candle, returned and looked, and she perceived a frightful visage that she had never before seen, black, swollen, with eyes closed, and a horrible grimace of the jaw. She uttered a cry, one of those piercing, interminable cries which women utter in their fright, and letting the candle fall, she opened the door and fled, unclothed, down the passage, continuing to scream in frightful fashion. A commercial traveller in his socks, who occupied room number 4, came out immediately, and received her in his arms. He asked, much startled, "What is the matter, pretty child?" She stammered out, terrified, "Someone has been killed in my room." Other guests appeared, the landlord himself ran out, and suddenly the commander showed his tall figure at the end of the corridor. When she saw him, she threw herself toward him, crying, save me, Gontran! Someone has been killed in our room." Explanations were difficult. Master Truffaut, however, told the truth, and demanded that they release Mademoiselle Clarisse, for whom he vouched with his own head. But the commercial traveller in socks, having examined the dead body, declared that a crime had been committed, and he convinced the other strangers that Mademoiselle Clarisse and her lover should not be allowed to depart. They were obliged to await the arrival of the police commissioner, who gave them their liberty, but was not discreet. The following month President Amandine received promotion with a new place of residence.